It is up or out for Derek Carr with the New Orleans Saints in year 2. This is with Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk on the NFL on NBC. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Florio is known to hate Derek Carr. He does not like Derek Carr. He is not a fan of Derek Carr. He has not been a fan of the Saints getting Derek Carr. So I have a sneaky feeling Mike is going to have a very negative reaction to this video, or a negative reaction to the idea of Carr's second year with New Orleans. Now, I do agree to an extent that Carr he has to succeed. Like, Carr's window is very short with the Saints. At the maximum, it's 4 years. Spoiler alert, it's not going to be 4 years, okay? He will have to be the best quarterback in the NFL, a top 5, top 8 guy for the Saints not to move off of him in year 3-ish, somewhere in there. Could be earlier, depending on how Carr plays this year and how Spencer Rattler develops, but the plan is in place. And it's nothing against Carr. I talk about this all the time. It's just a timeline. It's a timeline, it's contracts, it's all that. It has nothing to do with the actual individual player. If you look at the Falcons, same thing with Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is good. Kirk Cousins has to succeed. He has to play at a high level. It has to be up or he's out, to steal a phrase from Mike Florio. Nothing against Kirk Cousins, but it's just he's getting paid a ton of money. The Falcons drafted his replacement, Michael Penix. If he develops quickly, it's going to be a race against the salary cap and a race against the clock to get that new quarterback in and continue that development. So it's just a tale as old as time. So yeah, on one hand, I do agree Carr does need to play well, and the Saints probably do need to take a step forward for his time in New Orleans to be extended.
Get to choose the Raiders coming out of Fresno State, but when he was cut last year, he chose the New Orleans Saints. He is now entering year 2. And the contract, the way it was structured, it binds the Saints and Carr together.
Okay, so before Florio says this, the way I understand the contract is pretty much the Carr and the Saints, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is their quarterback for 2 years. After the second year, I think they can get a little cute. So it's really a guaranteed 2-year contract with years 3 and 4 kind of determined by the two parties. But for all intents and purposes, it's a for sure 2-year deal with Carr and the Saints.
Together as a practical matter for 2 years. Here is General Manager Mickey Loomis of said New Orleans Saints on what to expect from the younger brother of David Carr in his second year in New Orleans.
Look, one thing that's been understated, look, it's on purpose, is...
How about this picture of Mickey? I mean, look at this picture. That has to be from 1990. That might be from Mickey Loomis's first day on the job. What a photo. Wherever this was from, y'all couldn't update the photo? Unreal.
Derek had a pretty tough year last year physically. He got racked pretty good in the
got hurt
Green Bay
twice.
game, and it took a number of games for him to, get feeling like himself. And
then he got hurt again.
Look, he played through it. He's as tough as they come, but it affected him, particularly in the middle part of our season. And I thought he played really well toward the end. He got comfortable with, the receivers and the skill position guys that we have. And we've got to do a better job of protecting him as well. So I think the arrow is up, and we're excited about what Derek brings to the table. And I know he's excited. Look, it's hard.
I agree with all that, by the way. I agree that, he was in a pretty hard situation. Derek Carr was in a tough spot. When he comes in, whole new team, whole new, area, whatever, gets used to all that stuff, get used to the locker room, get used to the coaches, gets hurt, boom, immediately. Gets hurt, then tries to come back, doesn't miss any time. That's the thing with Carr, doesn't miss any time. Never missed a game, missed half of a game, but then plays a little bit, gets hurt again. All right, so... and then he got healthy and whatever, and towards the end of the year, everything looked okay. But, Carr, some people love him, some people hate him. Very polarizing topic. Very polarizing topic. I think Carr, for the most part last year, was fine. I think everyone would say, the overall season was a disappointment. By no means was it, an unbelievable performance, but I definitely don't think what Carr did last year is enough for people to be like, yeah, this guy sucks. This guy's ass. We need to get rid of him. He's terrible. He shouldn't even be in the league. Send him to the Canadian Football League. Like that's some reaction to the season. I think that's a little overblown, ladies and gentlemen.
Hard to take that leadership role, when you first come into a building, no matter how good you are, no matter what position you have. And so,
Jesus, Derek, what's going on here? What the hell was going on in that picture?
He's going to feel more comfortable about the leadership that you need from the quarterback, and we're expecting great things.
They got nothing else they can say here.
Well, yeah, obviously. Like, of course they're going to say he's our guy, he's good, he's the man. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they say that? Of course they're going to say that. If you went and asked the Giants, what do y'all think about Daniel Jones? The Giants would be like, we think he's going to take great strides. We think he's got a great future. We believe in Daniel Jones. We believe in this, even if behind closed doors, if they think Daniel Jones is garbage.
And I got a ton of respect for Mickey Loomis and what he's done with that team, but they got nothing else to say because they're tied to Derek Carr. That's their guy. But there are certain qualities, leadership or lack thereof, that are transferable from the Raiders to the Saints. We saw it last year, the gesticulation when he knows he's on camera, blaming others.
So this has been a big thing with Florio. I don't know if this is true or false. I don't know, okay? Florio believes that Carr is a guy who's going to play up to the cameras, who's going to play his role. He believes he's cosplaying as Peyton Manning. He believes that Carr wants to be Drew Brees. He wants to be this thing. So when he's on camera or in an interview or whatever, he really leans into it and he really plays it up. For those in the back, what Florio is saying is that Carr is not genuine. He's saying that Carr is a phony. He's saying that Carr's personality is a facade, if you will. Word of the day. I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't care. Okay? If Carr in front of the cameras is the nicest guy you've ever seen, and behind the cameras, he's pushing down old ladies, I don't care if he wins on Sunday. I don't care if he throws for 4,000 plus yards and has a positive touchdown interception ratio. I've said it a million times. If someone's a great guy, if they're a community leader, if they're funny and personable and they care about their friends and family and their neighbors, tell them to go run for city council. I want winners. I want performances on the field. I want results. I want to win the division. That's all I care about as a fan of the New Orleans Saints. All right? So his personality traits, who cares? All right? I know quarterbacks, Hall of Fame level quarterbacks who spent their entire career partying, pilled out of their mind, drinking every night, whatever, but they won, they hoisted the Lombardi, and no one cares. Okay? So I don't want to make this a personality contest because I think it doesn't matter at all.
There are certain aspects of the Derek Carr, there are certain aspects that are objectively not what you're looking for in an NFL starting quarterback, and I don't think that's all controversial. The fact that I'm tiptoeing around it for fear of having him unblock me and reblock me on X, I don't know why I care. These are well established. At a certain point, you just are who you are as a quarterback, as a person, as a leader, as a whatever. And with Derek Carr, something is missing. And I don't think year 12 is the year that there's some sort of grand epiphany that changes everything for Derek Carr.
This part right here is where I get kind of confused. What I would say to Florio is would you disagree that Derek Carr is an average NFL quarterback? I think he would say yes. I think he would say, yeah, average is about right. And then when you think about what does average mean, average is not that bad. Average is, let's just say average is 16. Let's go right in the middle. Okay, 32 teams divided by 2, 16. Boom, quick maths. Saying Derek Carr is the 16th best quarterback, it's all right, okay, that's sure. Florio and a lot of, when people get on this soapbox and they start talking about how Carr doesn't have this and Carr doesn't have that, and no one's saying that Derek Carr is a top 5 quarterback. No one's saying Derek Carr is Drew Brees. No one's saying that Derek Carr is Peyton Manning. No one's saying Derek Carr is Tom Brady. We're not asking him to be that. I'm not asking Derek Carr to be that level of a quarterback. You could say the same thing about a lot of quarterbacks that quarterback successful teams. You could say the same thing about Kirk Cousins. You could say the same thing about Trevor Lawrence. You could say the same thing about a lot of players. Like Dak Prescott. You could say, this guy, pretty average, kind of bad sometimes, kind of good sometimes, whatever, but he's not like a Hall of Fame level, superstar, all elite MVP type player. And I think we'd all agree with that. When people start doing that, it really shows their bias. Like, obviously, Florio does not like Carr or the Carr family. That's it. So he's really laying into this whole idea that Carr is not good. But he gets lost when he starts talking about how Carr isn't an NFL starting quarterback. He absolutely is good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. To think that he's not one of the 32 best quarterbacks is crazy. I think that is nuts. Now, if you told me Derek Carr is the 20th best quarterback in the NFL, I could listen to it. If you told me he was the 12th, I could listen to it. And the fact of the matter is, when you're in those tiers, when you're in that B tier level, they are all kind of the same. Like, it is kind of just a mixed bag of good sometimes, bad sometimes. Like, there's really nothing. There's not a lot separating quarterbacks at that level. Like, that's why I think rankings are kind of and tiers is a better way to do it. Like saying Patrick Mahomes is the number one quarterback, that doesn't really ring enough as to say he is this tier, this elite level, can drag a team to the Super Bowl, best in the game level tier, right? Because then he's in a tier by himself. But if you say, he's 1, Lamar Jackson's 2, Joe Burrow's 3, there is a much bigger gap between Patrick Mahomes and whoever you think is 2, Josh Allen. There's a much bigger gap than just 1 and 2. It is a legitimate tier. So saying Carr is, I think he's the 14th best quarterback, and then someone says, I think he's 19. It's kind of the same. At that level, it's kind of interchangeable once you're inside of that tier. I would say Carr is like a B tier level quarterback, which probably is somewhere between 12 and 20.
I think he's going to be year 11, right? Because he was 2014 draft class, so it's not going to be 12.
Year 11.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it's just
a
minor correction. Minor correction, same point. Yeah. But what's interesting to me about
keep that up and you won't have a year 11. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Florio didn't like that. Florio didn't like that at all. He didn't like that minor correction at all. That right there, Florio hated that.
Well, that's why I know, because my first year covering the league was 14, which was also his first year as a rookie. Anyway, I think the interesting thing about Carr is that he went back to the head coach that drafted him, right, in Dennis Allen. And when you think about those two guys, I mean, this 2-year experiment, if you want to call it that, like, they are tied together, right?
Yeah.
For
yes.
last year.
100%. 100%. Well said. Dennis Allen is on the hot seat. We talked about this last year. Dennis Allen was on the hot seat, so he went and he threw a Hail Mary, and he said, I'm going to go get my guy who can turn this thing around, which he believes is Derek Carr. If Derek Carr fails and the Saints are bad, Dennis Allen is getting fired. All right? If Derek Carr is bad and the Saints fail, Derek Carr is getting replaced. So those two are in the same world. They both have to succeed. They bet on each other. Carr bet on Allen and the Saints. Allen bet on Carr to revive the Saints. Right? So that is a great point and 100% true.
This year, and then it's kind of we'll see. And the Saints are one of those teams where they just, to me, seem kind of the same as they've been for the last, 4 years, even when Sean Payton was there. And I'm looking at them, and I guess ever since Drew Brees retired, I kind of feel like, all right, well, they could compete and maybe win the division in the NFC South, but do I feel like they're good enough to win a playoff game? I don't know. I don't think so. So, or if they are, they're not, I don't feel like they're good enough to get past the division round. So I look at that, and unless Derek Carr is going to take a much bigger step forward in terms of his performance, yeah, I mean, you can talk about, they had injuries, yes.
So this fella is echoing something that I think is a problem with a lot of the media and a lot of what I hear from fans is that, where he's kind of acting like winning the division, winning a playoff game, or making the playoffs but not winning or whatever. He's like, to him, that's an unfathomable place to put a team. And that's where people get lost, is that people believe that teams are either really like good or bad. That's it. It's one or two. You're either a great team, you can win the Super Bowl, or you're a bad team and you could be the first overall pick. Teams have to be in the middle. Teams have to be a 9-win, 10-win, 8-win team. There has to be teams like that. Not every team can win the Super Bowl, and not every team can be the worst team in the NFL. So it's okay. Just like not every quarterback is an MVP and not every quarterback is a backup. You have guys who are in those middle tiers, you have to have that. The Saints are that. The Saints are that. If you simulated the season 1,000 times, the Saints would probably average out to about 8 to 9 wins. They may win the NFC South in a few simulations. They may win a playoff game in a few simulations, just like the Bucs did last year. But that's it. That's the average. Does that mean that they're for sure going to do that? No. But on average, I would assume the Saints are right there, middle of the pack. That's where we're at. And that's okay. Teams have to be there. As long as the Saints are building a better structure around the franchise, and as long as they're, balancing their salary cap issues, and as long as they're getting younger at certain positions and, preparing for that next wave, as long as they're doing that while simultaneously being middle of the pack, fine. That's what the Saints have done for 20 years. Even when we had Drew Brees, the years where we won 7 games, 8 games, 9 games, we're middle of the pack. And then boom, we catch lightning in a bottle and we have a run to go to the NFC title game. We have a run to go to the Super Bowl. That's just totally normal. So, and that kind of goes with Carr. And that's why I don't expect Carr to be Joe Burrow. I don't expect Carr to be Patrick Mahomes. Can Carr catch lightning in a bottle and be really good for a stretch of games? Sure. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. It can absolutely happen. We saw it last year with the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield wasn't the reincarnation of Brett Favre, but Baker Mayfield was good enough for a stretch of games to win whatever it was, 9 or 10 games, to win a weak division, to get into the playoffs. And then they beat the Eagles. If they played the Eagles 100 times, do they beat them more than 50 times? Probably not. But they beat them that time, and that's all that matters. Does that mean Baker Mayfield is great? Does that mean Baker Mayfield has everything it takes to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, like Mike Florio said earlier in this video? Probably not. Maybe he's a starting level quarterback, but 2 years ago, people were saying this guy was a journeyman. He was done. He was released from Carolina. He was released from Los Angeles. Nobody was sitting here saying how great Baker Mayfield was. Last year, before the season, we did a video where ESPN was saying that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be the worst team in the NFL. And we said, that seems a little bit much. We're doing the same thing with the Saints now, where I'm seeing people put the Saints at 30, at 27, 28, 28th team. There's just different layers to this. People, I don't know when that happened, where being a 10-win team or a 9-win team or chasing a division or being at that level where all of a sudden that's unheard of. And that I just don't understand the philosophy of that. I think the Saints are going to take a step forward this year. I think they're going to be a better looking team. Now, with that, the schedule's harder. So, taking a step forward doesn't automatically equal 10 wins, 11 wins, 12 wins. Doesn't equal chasing the NFC title. Taking a step forward with that schedule that we're going to have could be 8 wins. Could be 9 wins in a weak division. Could win the division like that. There's so much more. There's so much more to a team or a player than, is this player elite? Or is this team a Super Bowl team? There's more to it than that.
And they won 4 of their last 5 games last year, so maybe they're able to carry a little bit of something into the 2024 season. But I don't know. I tend to agree with you. Once you've been who you are for 10 years, it's hard to think, all right, year 11 is going to be different. And that whole thing about him gesticulating on the field, right? Oh, man, it's everybody else's fault but mine. When we look at the best quarterbacks, Think about, it's kind of silly to compare Mahomes and Carr. So, let's get that straight. But when all of the receivers were having their issues last year, Mahomes never publicly was like, oh man, these guys suck. As much as he could have been like that, he didn't. The only time we really saw him show that visible frustration was when they were in New England and Kadarius Toney had the pick go off of his hands and into the arms of another defender, and that turned into an interception, right? I mean, that was the only time where Mahomes, you went to the bench.
I feel like we saw a lot of that from Mahomes last year. I feel like Mahomes quite a few times kind of gave the catch the damn ball look. And we saw Tom Brady through his whole career dress down offensive linemen, dress down wide receivers. We saw Peyton Manning in his career dress down his own teammates. Told Jeff Saturday, just snap the ball. Like there's that famous footage of him just going after Saturday on the sidelines. This is the dumbest thing where, like, are you trying to tell me that Carr is the only quarterback, or none of these other successful quarterbacks have ever done this? Aaron Rodgers last year in Green Bay was absolutely going after his young group of receivers. I'm telling you, winning cures everything. And if Carr and the Saints won 10, 11 games last year, I don't think we'd be talking about how him getting in arguments or whatever with the wide receivers. You can go back and look at a ton of great players, great quarterbacks, successful quarterbacks who have done that.
And he put his helmet down and he's just like, man, And other than that, it's never been, directed at teammates or like yelling at this or whatever. And Derek Carr has done that. And that's where you don't want that from your leadership at the quarterback position.
Tell Tom Brady that. Tell Tom Brady that. Tell Peyton Manning that. How did it hurt them? No, it didn't. It's a ridiculous argument to make.
I think he can do a better job with that going into 2024 for the New Orleans Saints.
He's got a cap charge in 25 of $51 million, cash of $40 million. I feel like he's really got to get it done this year. And even if he does, they're going to have to do something with the contract next year. I feel like
they will. They'll move the stuff around. They'll move the incentives. They do all that. I mean, you know how the Saints roll.
Like this is up or out for Derek Carr in New Orleans, and you could say it's up or out for Dennis Allen. New Orleans, I think, prides itself on the consistency, the continuity.
Yeah, they do. Mickey does.
The owner
for
is
sure.
on board with that. Mickey Loomis is on board with it. No dramatic moves. No sudden changes. Let's just keep plugging away. They do have that Super Bowl trophy in the case, which makes it easier to be patient in this post-Sean Payton life that they have. But let's see. Let's just see. Division got a little more challenging this offseason with the arrival of Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. Maybe it's not that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe at the end of the day, it's easier to do.
Like, not to get on a rant again, but the whole, we got to have patience, like patience after Sean Payton and all that stuff. It really hasn't been that long. And it really hasn't. I mean, when Peyton leaves and Breeze leaves, and we went through the books and Simeons and Daltons and Winstons and all that, a lot of other franchises, those are 3-win years. A lot of other franchises, those are 4-win years, 5-win years. The fact that the Saints kind of bottomed out with 7 wins, and then last year we jumped back up to 9 wins, even with an easy schedule. But ask the Atlanta Falcons how easy it is to win games. Because last year they had an easier schedule than the Saints. They went 7-10. So, easier said than done, ladies and gentlemen. And the Saints do pride themselves on being relevant and maintaining that level of consistency. And as a fan, I'm glad. As a fan, I'm glad that the bottom, that we're ready to, turn the lights off, pull the shades down, and go to sleep. We're ready to, a depression situation off of a 9-8 season. Was last year disappointing? Hell yeah. I had the biggest bet I ever made in my life on the Saints to win over 9.5 games. Okay? I wasn't happy. Disappointing year, sure. But good God. We talked about it a few videos ago. Since 2000, which is well before Sean Payton, since 2000, the Saints are one of the 10 most winning franchises in the NFL. It is what it is. Dallas Cowboys, America's team, 0 NFC title game appearances, 0 Super Bowl appearances. I believe it's 7 division championships since 2000. Pathetic. That's pathetic. The Saints, what is it, 3? 3 NFC title appearances, a Super Bowl, like 8 or 9 division titles. The Saints have been so much better than the Cowboys since 2000. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost 25 years we're talking about. This isn't like, oh, the Saints have been okay for 5 or 6 years. We're talking about a 25-year chunk. 25-year chunk where the Saints are markedly better than some of these other franchises in the NFL that you don't hear nothing. You don't hear nothing about how, oh, well, they got to have some patience. Oh, they got to have this with franchises like the Dallas Cowboys. Every year it's the same thing. Oh, the Dallas Cowboys can win the Super Bowl this year. Oh, yeah? How about they worry about making an NFC title game? So to say all that is to say that what the Saints are doing is working. Because again, 25 years, long time, 25 years, losing a Hall of Fame head coach and losing a Hall of Fame quarterback and continuing that consistency is not easy. Ladies and gentlemen, get on a bus, get on a Greyhound, drive your ass up to New England and ask Bobby Kraft. Ask Bobby Kraft how easy it is to keep the boat steady when you lose a Hall of Fame quarterback. Ask him. Because you can put on Netflix with my girl Nikki Glazer, watch the roast of Tom Brady, because they'll all tell you on there too. So it's getting overblown. It is. I'm not sitting here saying Derek Carr is the greatest quarterback in the world. I'm not sitting here saying the Saints are going to the Super Bowl this year. But the reaction, the media, how the way that they're covering this team makes me sick. Makes me sick to my stomach. Ladies and gentlemen, get in the comments below. Get on down there. Tell me what you think. I was on fire this video. No one does it like me. This channel's exploding. And it's all because of you and the support. So I thank you very much. And I will see you in the next video.